Hey everybody, I'm Jack Reeder with Future Pastimes, and I'm a designer on expansions for the classic Dune board game, 2019 edition from Gale Force 9. And in this video, I'm going to talk about deals in Dune. Now, I have the rule book here, and it doesn't have a whole lot to say about deals. So let's read what it does say, and then we're going to dive into what all it means and some examples of some deal making that you can do in Dune. Now, deals actually show up under bribery on page 12, and it says players who are not members of the same alliance. So deal making doesn't occur between allies. You have your whole own thing you can do as an ally. So let's get back to this. Players who are not members of the same alliance can make any kind of verbal deals or bribes between one another. Once made, these deals and bribes must be stated aloud and must be honored. So you can't make a deal with another player and then be, psych, I'm not really doing that deal. You must honor that deal if at all possible. A player cannot renege on a deal or bribe. Spice can be part of the bribe or deal. A deal or bribe cannot involve the transfer or gift of treachery cards, leaders, forces, or faction advantages. This leaves out secret information, future actions, and of course, spice. Player cannot make a deal or bribe that would contravene the rules or the player's faction powers. These are the only limitations. So, you can't say, I'll give you 10 spice if you give me a projectile weapon. None of that can occur. But there's actually a lot of latitude about what can be done in a deal or bribe, especially when you look into what it says here. These are the only limitations. These are the only limitations. Took me a second to find it. So that means you can agree to do or not to do certain actions, like I will not capture one of your leaders if I beat you in this battle as the Harkonnen. That is an advanced advantage. That is optional. They certainly don't have to do it. And I've made that deal before. So let's talk about some typical deals. I had a recent game where somebody had moved their forces to a spice blow. Then it was my turn to ship and move. And I made it clear that I was going to be moving a fairly sizable force into that territory unless they agreed to give me some of that spice that they mined in the spice collection phase, which at that point would count as a bribe. So it was not my ally. So yeah, another faction was in there, and they did not want to fight me, and I didn't want to have to necessarily go through the all of the steps and details and logistics of getting into a fight, and maybe it not going my way, and probably having to sacrifice some leaders, but most importantly, have to reveal some of my treachery cards if I really wanted to win that fight. So it was just easier for me to threaten them with coming in and causing a lot of ruckus with a fight and just extorting spice from them. That is an example of a deal. We made a deal that I would not attack them in exchange for spice that they were going to be collecting in that territory. Now, they must honor that deal, but if someone had come in afterward and fought them and then their forces were wiped out and they were not collecting any of that spice, well, they didn't collect any spice in that territory, so they didn't have to give me any of that spice. Sometimes you do have to make sure that you're clear on that deal. So that deal could have been, if you give me 4 spice, I won't go in there. Now, in that case, I'm expecting that, the expectation would be that they could just bribe you that 4 spice right there and then you don't have to worry about any of the things. But they don't have any of that spice. And they say, yeah, I'll give you 4 spice. But then this other scenario happens where someone has come in and is fighting them and they end up losing. Again, if they don't have the spice, they're not really on the hook for it. But you should sort that out ahead of time. I hate to, encourage rules lawyering, but a deal is a deal. So you're either going to have to agree that, like, when you get the spice, you must bribe it to me, or it's got to be out of that in there. The people that I play with, we've been through these scenarios many, many times. So we have an understanding, and we're already well out ahead of those kinds of conundrums by putting it right into the terms. I won't attack you there, but I want 4 of the spice that you mine right there, or that you are mining, any that you mine in this turn. Understanding that, again, if somebody else is going to come in later and change the environment, then they can no longer really honor that deal. But I've also had a situation where I wanted somebody, again, I was a Harkonnen, and I wanted somebody to move into the stronghold to block it. We were afraid that another faction was going to try to go for the win. They had a full hand of cards, and they were well positioned, and everyone else was in a little bit of a weaker state. But I was in Carthage, and I made a deal with the Emperor, put one of your forces in there, and that gave them the opportunity to use Thopters for some of their other forces, which they really wanted to move more than just one territory. So I said, look, come into the stronghold. We will have to battle, but we can agree to not play any weapons. So I won't kill your leader, and winning that battle, I won't capture one of your leaders as well. So we'll both dial 0, and I'll just play a higher strength leader, and there will be no traitor calls or any of those shenanigans as well. So again, it was a deal. In order for them to be able to get a hold of some Thopters and move some forces to a more convenient location on another part of the map. And it also let us block a stronghold. Now, I could have also tried to extort some spice out of the Emperor. He had plenty of it. In fact, now that I think about it, I think I did say, give me a couple of spice as well. But in any case, that's another example of a deal. So stronghold blocking is actually a pretty common deal that you can have. When players are not sure that they're prepared to really try to take somebody out who is going to go for the win, but that player is going later in the turn order, then you got to have a chance to block at least some of those strongholds, at least where you have a weak force, and leave somebody who is stronger and better positioned to put up a good fight. Leave their strongholds available for that aggressive player. So you make the deal, and a common deal is, look, no one's going to call traitor, no one's going to kill a leader. We won't do any of those things. I'll just play a higher leader, you play a lower one, and then your forces, hopefully you're not losing that many forces, but of course if you are throwing that fight, they are going to go to the tanks. And sometimes you can get compensation for that. You say, yeah, I will throw the fight to you, but I want you to bribe me back the spice that will take me to ship down to that location, or I want you to bribe me 2 spice so that I can revive an extra force. Let's say, it's the guild. They only have 1 free revival, and, they don't want to have to start building up forces in the tank. So they say, look, you bribe me back. Spacing Guild usually has the spice anyway, but again, it doesn't hurt to have more. So somebody has the spice, you try to get some spice out of them. Information is another great thing to make deals about. And that is not just information about treachery cards, but also about traitors or safe leaders. So let's say that you're playing a game of Dune, especially one in which the Tleilaxu are not in the game. When you're dealt your starting 4 traitor cards, unless you're the Harkonnen, you're going to keep 1, and the other 3 are going to be put back into the deck. And that deck is not going to be touched again under most circumstances, barring something like leader skills or some other effect, perhaps a future effect. But for now, that those other 3 leaders are safe leaders. If they're your own leaders, that's extra good. But if they belong to other factions, that is valuable information, especially if they're in a critical fight, perhaps to prevent a win, or to try to take out somebody who is in a very strong position, so that you can weaken them. If you know of one of their leaders that they can safely play in that battle, and they've got the spice, that's a great deal. You can say, look, I give you a safe leader for X amount of spice. Could be other things too, like don't move your forces into this territory so I can get spice, or agree not to attack me for the next 2 turns in this stronghold, or any number of other things. A lot of stuff can be done as long as it doesn't contradict what has been laid out in the rule book, which isn't a lot. But yes, information about cards is great as well. It's one of the great ways that Atreides can get some income, because the Atreides don't naturally have the ability to gain spice. But they're seeing all those cards that are up for auction, and sometimes a player doesn't really want to buy yet another worthless card, or perhaps a cheap hero, or one of the other special cards. They're really looking for a weapon or defense. So you as Atreides can solicit bribes for that information. I've made deals for, if you bribe me X amount of spice right now, and I will tell you the next time that a weapon or defense or whatever specific card comes up for bid. Or I will let you know when somebody buys a snooper, or I will let you know whatever it is you want to know. So you get that bribe for a future thing. And that can be very lucrative as well. Ixians have card knowledge as well. They know about what everybody's pocket card, that's the card that they are dealt at the beginning of the game. They know what's out there. They don't necessarily know who has what, but they'll know, yes, for instance, there are no shields currently out there. So anyone who gets a projectile weapon is going to be able to kill the opposing leader. That's valuable information as well. Being able to say, yes, I know what that second card was that the Harkonnen got for free because I put it on top of the deck. Things like that can be very valuable, and somebody may be interested in paying you for that information, or again, making a deal for some other things. I've made deals with Atreides where instead of giving them spice, I let them know what my pocket card was. What was that one card that I was dealt? Because they're keeping track of everything on a spreadsheet or whatever method they're using. And so, especially if it's a fairly innocuous card, I'll say, yeah, I'll let you know. I got the Tleilax Ugola card. So, and in exchange, I get to see 2 of the cards up for bid, or I get to see any one card up for bid this auction of my choice. Things like that. So part of the magic of what makes Dune a great game is the fact that you can do these things. You can make these deals. You can bribe or have other deals that don't necessarily involve spice, and it really jazzes up the game. It makes a lot of stuff much more interesting. It makes some of your decisions easier to make. You're not having to go into certain situations as blind as you normally would. You don't necessarily have to sacrifice so many of your forces just to stay where you are. So I encourage people to delve more and more into the deal making and the bribery in Dune. An interesting fact for you is that back in 1979, when Dune was first published by Evelyn Hill, the original designers of Dune, who were largely responsible for the basic rules, or what back then was just the rules without the optional rules, they did not do a lot of dealing, some amount of dealing, but no bribing. Bribing was just not a part of their gameplay, and it continues to not really be part of their gameplay. They did do occasional informal deal making, but that has been something that has largely grown out of the Dune community over the last 40 years, is that a lot of people say, yeah, why aren't we making these deals? We should be making these deals, and it really has added a lot to the game. So I encourage you to make deals and have bribes. Be careful about your wording of your deals, of course, and try to honor them as much as humanly possible. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments yourself about deals and bribes, and let me know any interesting stories. Let me know some of your favorite deals that you have made, especially ones that I haven't mentioned in this video. And let's get the word out there so more and more people are taking advantage of this aspect of Dune, which makes a great game even greater, in my opinion. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.